The US Army admits it uses controversial white phosphorus munitions in Iraq, which can cause horrific injuries and is restricted from use in areas within a civilian population. A new poll shows that the majority of US soldiers now oppose America's foreign interventions. And an Austrian city slaps a curfew on underage migrants after young newcomers sexually assault almost 20 women at a wine and beer festival. RT speaks exclusively to the city's mayor. You're watching RT International live from Moscow with me, Nadira Tudor. Welcome to the programme. US forces have admitted to using controversial white phosphorus in Iraq. Now let's cross over to our reporter Emily Sue for more details on this. Now, Emily, what do we know so far?
Well, Nadira, based on these photos that's emerged online, managed by a website managed by the Pentagon, we know that the U.S. troops are in fact using white phosphorus in Iraq, and although it's unclear exactly how, but that is the key, because although it's not against international law to use white phosphorus to create a smoke screen or signal advancing troops, its usage is highly controversial, even against combatants, because once white phosphorus contacts the human body, it can cause lethal and severe chemical burns. Let's listen to what the colonel had to say about the use of white phosphorus.
When U.S. forces use these munitions, as required by the law of armed conflict, they do so in a way that fully considers possible incidental effects on civilians and civilian structures. The U.S. military takes all reasonable precautions to minimize the risk of incidental injury to non-combatants and damage to civilian structures.
Now, the colonel also said that the white phosphorus was used as part of a Kurdish offensive in a northern Iraqi town called Guer. In the statement we heard there, he said that they've considered the incidental effects on civilians and civilian structures. However, there are several key points that he cannot clarify. Some of them are, I'll tell you now. One thing is that he said that he could not say how many times the chemical was used or whether it had been dropped on the combatants or their equipment. He was also unable to say whether the rounds were dropped away from the town on ISIL positions or if they had been used in the town where civilians were present.
Now, Emily, not a lot of people will know what phosphorus does or what white phosphorus does. How dangerous is it?
White phosphorus is highly flammable, and it burns as soon as it contacts oxygen. And when it contacts the human body, it will burn until it runs out of oxygen. Pretty much it means that it could burn right down to the bone, and it could be lethal in causing the person's death.
Now, what do we know about the usage of white phosphorus before these revelations by the US? Have they used it before?
Exactly, absolutely, Nadira. I must warn you that some of the images that I'm about to show you could be quite disturbing to some viewers, as they show residents of Fallujah who were affected by the U.S. Marines bombardment there back in 2004. And what I can tell you is during the months of besiegement of Fallujah, well, the U.S. Marines initially said that they also used white phosphorus to create a smoke screen, and they were not using it on any civilians or soldiers, but they later admitted that they were actually using white phosphorus as an incendiary weapon against enemy combatants. And also in 2009 in Afghanistan, NATO forces have been accused of burning a 8-year-old girl because of the usage of white phosphorus. And looking forward, some human rights groups are concerned that with the ongoing conflict in Iraq against terrorism, well, it could be, white phosphorus could be used in densely populated urban areas like the highly strategic city of Mosul as well.
RT's Emily Sue there. Thank you very much for that update. Thank you. After 15 years of wars, many American servicemen are now against the country's interventions in foreign nations. A new poll found that 55% of active duty military personnel somewhat or strongly oppose the United States nation-building efforts of establishing democracies overseas. Most of the soldiers said that efforts should focus more on security at home and counter-terrorism. Vietnam War veteran Barry Ladendorf says that while the military-industrial complex is thriving, those on the ground are paying the price for global conflict.
I think what we've experienced in the last 20 years or more is that invading more countries, dropping more bombs, killing innocent civilians in Muslim countries does not seem to be a formula for success. And the American military is paying for that by these endless, unconstitutional, unnecessary wars in the Middle East. What the rank and file soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen on the ground think about the war has little impact. What drives these unnecessary wars is the military-industrial complex. They control the country, they control the direction of the military in this country.
RT asked the Department of Defense to comment on whether it will take its soldiers' opposition to US nation building abroad into account when planning future missions. We have not yet received a response. The US has launched 2 major wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in the last 15 years alone. More than 6,000 American soldiers have been killed in these conflicts.
We've been at war endlessly in Afghanistan, and nothing has changed. It gets worse. We destroyed the country of Iraq with no justification and no reason at all. It has fostered the rise of ISIL, and of course that has wreaked havoc throughout the Middle East. So why would we continue, why would the soldiers on the ground who experience this lack of success be enamored with continuing on a failed program? I'm not surprised.
Many of those who return from the battlefield alive are mentally unable to leave the conflict behind them. The latest figures show more than 20 veterans are committing suicide every day. Those startling numbers have even prompted stars like ex-English footballer David Beckham to try and draw attention to the crisis, taking part in a flash mob on social media. It's called the 22 Push-Up Challenge, 22 being the number of daily suicides previously estimated.
It's for a great cause, a serious cause. It's for all the servicemen and women that take their lives every single day.
Now, the required amount of push-ups is 22.
This is to raise awareness for the 22 veterans who commit suicide daily. 22 push-ups, here we go. Then I'm going to challenge somebody after this. Come on, buddy, me and you, Hawks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you, buddy.
Post-traumatic stress disorder and serious health problems are just some of the challenges that US veterans are facing. RT has a documentary that you can watch on our website, rt.com, that takes a close look into life after the battlefield.
I served in the U.S. Army in the Military Intelligence Division. I think 3 times total I've been homeless.
It's not like when I came back from Iraq, I was like, I didn't have no interest in it no more or nothing. And by little, I started getting better at it, you know, back again into it and saying, no, I gotta.
For more than 50 years, one American shoe company, Welco Enterprises, has been proud to provide the state's servicemen with made-in-the-US footwear. But it turns out those boots have actually been produced in China for quite some time now.
You just need to be a patriotic American that appreciates a top-quality combat boot that's 100% made in the USA.
The company, whose bosses are now facing an indictment, have sold millions of dollars of footwear to the Pentagon since the Vietnam War. Let's take a look at the boots in question. They feature high ankle supports and are made from fleshed-out durable leather. They also have high-traction rubber soles that provide durability. The company is now accused of conspiracy and defrauding the US government by not disclosing the military-style boots were actually Chinese-made. It's alleged that Welco removed the Made in China labels from the products. And the revelation may give a whole new meaning to the line US boots on the ground.
I will not put American boots on the ground in Syria.
There will be no American boots on the ground in Libya.
The story would therefore mean there are in fact 0 US boots on the ground, only Chinese. Media analyst Lionel told us even though most products found in America come from China, he's not surprised people are upset as even military supplies are from there too.
This is the part that I find the most interesting. If you told people today, if you told a lot of American viewers that counterfeit AIDS medicine was sold to various countries, or that the poor were somehow bamboozled or defrauded, people would say, well, you know, but American troops and their boots, and they ripped the China label off and passed them off as American goods, that just strikes a chord.